This is part two of the screencasts on tool culture, and we were discussing Acheulean tool culture, so the second tool culture of four. Um, One of the most important things I think to recognize about Acheulean tool culture is a technique they used called bifacial chipping. So the way they created these very standardized kind of spearhead looking tools was to chip away at the top of a rock off the sides and then do the same to the other side. So if you look at it on side view, you can see that they chipped away at this face and chipped away at this face, creating a really sharp edge down the side. But there's quite a significant bulge in the middle of the tool when you look at it on a side. It's not very flat. So they've, smashed away. So there's a relatively sharp edge down the sides of the tool. Um, but yeah, it's not massively practical as of yet. These tools were created by Ergaster and continued by Erectus and Heidelbergensis, who were kind of the primitive sapiens. But yeah, most significantly, Erectus was the species that developed this tool culture over time. And I'm going to give you a really easy way to remember who did what later on. So here's another photo of a Acheulean tool that has been preserved, and it is a hand axe. So again, using the power grip to smash things and cut things. It's got sharp edges, but it is quite bulging on the two faces. And it's got that really classic teardrop shape. So a fat kind of drop shape with a sharp end and sharp sides. But yeah, not massively developed. Bifacial chipping is the technique that we talked about for Acheulean tool culture. So chipping away at two faces and creating an edge on the side. So you can see kind of a step-by-step process here. Yeah, and it's just a really standardized and quite recognizable design of Acheulean tools. So the culture of Heidelbergensis was more impressive than that of Ergaster that came at the very beginning and really started the development of this tool culture. So what I mean by that is that Acheulean tool culture developed massively over time and really was quite significantly different from the beginning of that period to the end. So once Heidelbergensis started creating and using tools, that's when tool culture shifted into being used for hunting. So yeah, we're seeing an increase in uses of tools as time passes, as well as an increase in the efficiency of the tool and the way that it's developed, and a trend in investing more time and effort into creating tools, trending towards creating more efficient, longer lasting tools, etc. So making sure that we focus on the trends that we notice over time. So yeah, weapons at the beginning of Acheulean tool culture would have been quite basic and used for, again, bashing things, digging things, cutting things. And by the end of Acheulean tool culture, these teardrop-shaped tools were being used to hunt rather than just scavenge. All right, tool culture number 3, Mousterian tools. Okay, and as we can see on the timeline to the side, this tool culture emerged about 160,000 years ago, and that's really quite recent and lasted until, I can't see, 30,000 years ago. So, yeah, it is a lot more recent, and there is more significant knowledge about developing and using tools with this tool culture. So, we recognize a trend in the use of materials for Mousterian tools. The creators understood properties of different rock types and what were best suited for creating the tools that they wanted, particularly when it came to the predictability of the flakiness of the rock that they were using. So flint and obsidian, for example, you could chip away at this rock really predictably, understanding where it was going to break away, where its weak points were. Flint is like kind of a layered sedimentary rock, I believe. So yeah, it's quite predictable to use, and so we recognize that the creators understood this about the properties of rocks. So again, that shows development of the brain and planning and things like that as well. Yeah, what have I got next? Okay, so we can see significant investment in this tool. So again, recognizing that the creators understood the relationship between how much time and energy you invest in creating the tool and then the efficiency of the tool afterwards. Often these tools were made using other tools that had been made specifically for creating more tools. So very extreme foresight. I want to create this tool, but in order to do that, I need a tool that can help me do that. So yeah, significant planning, improvement and development in the frontal lobe, abstract thought, all of that. Um, yeah, and we just see an improvement in teaching, foresight skills, manufacturing, all of that through the Mousterian period. Um, the really significant technique that we attribute to Mousterian tool creators is called the Levallois technique. And you can see it in this GIF to the right here. The technique involved shaping the top half of a rock into like a nice flat piece with lots of sharp edges, and then sticking a tool in and just popping a piece of that rock off the top. So again, using the predictability of the material, popping it off, and then being left with a curved face that had been created intentionally, and then a really sharp flat underside to the tool, as you can see in the bottom picture here. So that's called the Levallois technique, and it's evident in a lot of Mousterian tools, and it was employed by the Neanderthals. So Mousterian tool culture is attributed to Neanderthals. They've created hand axes, points, so spears and knives, and Levallois blades that they could use for cutting things. So some of the points that they created appear designed to be used on spears or lances. So you can see a tang at the bottom of the rock that signifies that it was probably connected to something else using some sort of twine to create spears and things like that, which is what we call composite tools. I'll come on to that a bit later. We can see that there's a lot more effort and labour going into creating these tools, and it pays back in being extra sharp and efficient. And the whole periphery of the tool is useful. So they understood that investment led to efficiency. Okay, Upper Paleolithic tool culture is the last tool culture, and it is the current or present tool culture. So it is attributed to Homo sapiens. It emerged about 120,000 years ago and still occurs today. And we can see there that these two tool cultures overlap, and that's because sapiens and Neanderthals coexisted for a long period of time. So Upper Paleolithic tools, these are the most developed and advanced tools. They include tools used for a number of different uses like harpoons, fishing hooks, bows and arrows, burin, and along with the proliferation of tool uses came a huge abundance of materials that were used, techniques that were used, etc. So trending towards really advanced, impressive tools that employed a lot of different techniques and were used for a lot of different reasons. Specifically, when we talk about materials, we've seen that every other tool culture uses stones, sometimes trending towards using more understandable and predictable stones, maybe connecting those stones to a piece of wood. But when we get to Upper Paleolithic tool culture, we actually see that tools were being made out of bone, out of ivory, out of antlers, out of wood, out of stone. There's just a huge array of materials that are being employed here. So that's another trend that we recognize with Upper Paleolithic tool culture. And Homo sapiens were attributed with the most obvious use of composite devices or composite tools, which are tools that are made of a number of different pieces connected together. So a fishing hook, for example, joined to a fibre, joined to a piece of wood, or a spearhead joined to a stick using twine, etc. So making tools, having the foresight to create something with a number of different materials, different methods, and seeing that in advance and planning for it. Homo sapiens also made many tools for making tools, such as burins, which can be used specifically to work with ivory and things like that. Tools for creating sculptures for art and spirituality. Tools for helping you chip away at the stone on another tool. And we can see that materials were actually being used from a number of different areas, which infers that Homo sapiens were using the opportunity of trade at this time as well, and recognizing that they could help each other, which is massive. So here's a picture of some Upper Paleolithic harpoons and a sewing needle at the bottom there. And this is my trick for remembering who did what. So you need to remember two of these, I don't know, what do you call these? Mnemonics. Old and Mouldiandes will help you remember the order of the tool cultures. Oldowan, A for Acheulean, M for Mousterian, and U for Upper Paleolithic. Old and Mouldiandes, and they can be attributed to the following hominins. Hens, habilis, erectus, neanderthalensis, and sapiens. Okay, so old and moldy undies, hens, or just imagine a hen wearing some old and moldy undies. There you go. And they connect in order. So Olderwin connects to Homo habilis, aka handyman, first guy to develop and use tools, the oldest tool culture, so Olderwin habilis. Erectus, potentially Ergaster, who came slightly earlier, so still E, still works. And also Heidelbergensis, who kind of developed the very end of that tool culture. Heidelbergensis isn't essential to this unit that we understand Heidelbergensis and his significance, but he is considered the primitive Homo sapiens. Mousterian Neanderthalensis, so mouldy in. Mousterian is attributed to the Neanderthals, and then the Upper Paleolithic tool culture is us, so sapiens came last. I hope that helps. Write it down, and then it will just you'll get used to connecting them in your head eventually. Okay, so recap. After you've done your notes, come back and see if you can answer these questions, and I will cover the answers in my next screencast. Ta-ta!